"Well, if you've come to administer me the oath," Arenya said to Sri, "you might as well get on with it. I was in the midst of hunting when you interrupted me." "Softly," Sri said. "Your power is a byword all throughout these parts. I want it in the song. But we're not so short of wizards that I'll include one who'll bring the high and dry down on us. Choose, and tell me whether you can truthfully sing and leave your anger behind." Arenya cruised slowly through the group, making no sound but the small ticking noises the sperm uses to navigate. "Seeing that the human who sings with us sings for the sea's sake," she said at last in that tight, flat voice, "I am content. But my heart is bitter in me for my calf's loss, and I cannot forget that easily. Let the humans remember that, and keep their distance." "If that is well for you, too," Kit and Nita both flicked tails in agreement. "Well enough, then," said Sri. "Arenya te hui dei, those who gather to sing that song that is the sea's shame and the sea's glory desire you to be of their company. Say for my hearing whether you consent to that song." "I consent." Arenya sang her way through the responses with slow care, and Nita began to relax slightly. The sperm's voice was beautiful, as pleasant as Kit's, when she wasn't angry. Yet she couldn't help but catch a couple of Arenya's glances at Ed, as if she knew that she was being watched for her responses, and would be watched in the future. Then the third question was asked, and Arenya's song scaled up in the high notes of final affirmation, a sound of tearing, chilly beauty. "Let me wander forever amid the broken and the lost, sooner than I shall refuse the song," Arenya sang, "or what it brings about for the good of those who live." But there was a faint note of scorn in the last phrase, as if the singer already counted herself among the lost and broken, and the notes on "those who live" twisted down the scale into a bitter diminuendo of pain that said life was a curse. Now it was Suri's turn to look dubious, but it was too late. "Well," the sperm said, "when is the foregathering, and where?" "Tomorrow dawn," said Suri, "in the waters off the hook. Will you be on time?" "Yes," Arenya said. "So farewell." And she turned tail and swam off. Kit flicked a glance at Ed and said quietly to Nita, "Boy, that was a close one. If those two got started fighting—" "It would not be anything like close," Ed said. "Okay, great," Kit said in mild annoyance. "She couldn't kill you, but isn't it just possible she might hurt you a little?" "She would regret it if she did," Ed said. "Blood in the water will call in some sharks, true, but their master's blood in the water will call them all in, whether they smell it or not. Every shark for thousands of lengths around. That is my magic, you see. And whatever the master shark might be fighting when his people arrived would shortly not be there at all, except as rags and scraps for fingerlings to eat." Nita and Kit and Sri looked at each other. "Why do we need Arenya in the first place?" Nita said to Sri. "Is she really that good a wizard?" Turning, Sri began to swim back the way they had come, through the now darkening water. Hotshot paced her, and silently, pale in the dimness, Ed brought up the rear. "Yes," Sri said. "In fact, by rights, she should have been Imnu's apprentice, not I." Kit looked at her in surprise. "Why wasn't she?" Sri made a little moan of annoyance. "I don't know," she said. "Arenya is a much more powerful wizard than I am. Even Imnu agreed with me about that. Yet he refused her request to study with him, not just once, but several times. And now this business with her calf." Sri blew a few huge bubbles out her blowhole, making an unsettled noise. Well, we'll make it work out." "That shall yet be seen," Ed said from behind them. The moon was high when Nita and Kit came out of the water close to the jetty and went looking for their clothes. Kit spent a while gazing longingly up at the silver-golden disk while Nita dressed. "We're really going to get killed now, aren't we?" he said, so quietly that Nita could hardly hear him. "Uh-huh." Nita sat down on the sand and stared out at the waves, while Kit went hunting for his bathing suit and windbreaker. "What do you think they'll do?" Kit said. Nita shook her head. "No idea." Kit came up beside her, adjusting his windbreaker. "You think they're going to send me home?" "They might," she said. They toiled up the last dune before home and looked down toward the little rough road that ran past the house. All the upstairs lights were on. The downstairs ones were dark. Evidently Daireen had been sent to bed. "Neats," Kit said. "What are you gonna do?" "I'm sworn, Kit. I'm in the song. I have to be there." "You mean you're going to—" "Don't," she said, in genuine pain. She didn't want him to say it, to think it, any more than she wanted to think it herself. And to tell the absolute truth, she wasn't sure of what she was going to do about the song yet. "They don't need me for the song," Kit said. "It doesn't look that way." "Yeah." He was quiet a moment. "Look, if somehow I can get you off the hook, get your folks to think this is all my fault somehow, so that you can still go out—" "No," Nita said, scandalized. "Anyway, they'd never buy it. I promised my mom I'd be back on time last time, and blew it. Then I snuck out today. They know it's me as much as you. I'm just going to have to face the music." "With what?" Kit said. "I don't know." The thought of treating her parents as enemies made her feel as if the bottom had fallen out of the universe. The one good thing, she thought, is that by tomorrow, tonight will be over. "I hope." "Come on," she said. Together they went home. The house was deadly still when they stepped in, and the screen door closing behind them seemed loud enough to be heard for miles around. The kitchen was dark. Light flowed into it from the living room, the subdued illumination of a couple of table lamps. There was no sound of TV, even though Nita knew her dad's passion for late movies. No music, despite her mom's fondness for classics and symphonic rock at any hour of day or night. Nita's mouth felt dry as beach sand. She stopped where she was, tried to swallow, looked at Kit. He looked back, punched her lightly in the arm, then pushed past her and walked into the living room. Nita felt that for the rest of her life, however many hours that might last, she would not be able to get rid of the image and feeling of that room when she walked in. The living room needed a new paint job. Its rug was threadbare in places, and the walls were hung with bargain basement seascapes, wide-eyed children of almost terminal cuteness, and, in one corner, something her dad called the piece of resistance, a garish matador done in day-glow paint on black velvet. Her mother and father were sitting side by side on the Coca-Cola-colored couch, their backs straight. They looked up as Nita and Kit came through the door, and Nita saw her mother's face tight with fear and her father's closed like a door. They had been reading magazines. They put them aside, and the usually friendly room suddenly looked dingy as a prison, and the matador hurt Nita's eyes. "Sit down," her father said. His voice, quiet, calm, sounded too much like Ed's. She managed to hold on to her composure as she headed for Daireen's favorite chair and sat down quickly. "Pretty slick," said her father. "My daughter appears to have a great future in breaking and entering, or breaking and departing." Nita opened her mouth and shut it again. She could have dealt with a good scolding, but this chilly sarcasm terrified her, and there was no way out of it. "Well," her father said, "you'd better start coming up with some answers, young lady." "You too," he said to Kit, his eyes flashing, and at the sight of the anger, Nita felt a wash of relief. That look was normal. "Because what you two say is going to determine whether we send you straight home tomorrow morning, Kit, and whether we let you and Nita see any more of each other." Kit looked her father straight in the eye and said nothing. Sperm whales, Nita thought, and it was nearly a curse. But then she took the thought back, as she realized that Kit was waiting for her to say something first, to give him a lead. Great. Now all I have to do is do something. What do I do? "Kit," her father said, "I warn you, I'm in no mood for Latin gallantry and the whole protect-the-lady business. You are entrusted to my care, and I want answers. Your parents are going to hear about this in any case. What you say, or don't say, is going to determine what I tell them. So be advised." "I understand," Kit said. Then he glanced at Nita. "Neets?" Nita shook her head ever so slightly, amazed as always by that frightened bravery that would wait for her to make a move, then back her utterly. It had nothing to do with the whale shark. "Kit," Nita thought, practically trembling with the force of what she felt, "you're incredible. But I don't have your guts, and I have to do something." Her mother and father were looking at her, waiting. "Oh, Lord," Nita thought then, and bowed her head and put one hand over her face, for she suddenly knew what to do. She looked up. "Mom," she said, and then had to start over, for the word came out in a kind of strangled squeak. "Mom, you remember when we were talking the other day, and you said you wanted to know why we were staying out so much, because you thought something besides nothing was going on?" Her mother nodded, frozen-faced. Well, there was," Nita said, not sure where to go from there. 2 months of wizardry, spells wrought, and strange places visited, and wonders seen. How to explain it all to non-wizards, especially when they might not be able to see wizardry done right under their eyes, and in the past hadn't. "Never mind that," Nita told herself desperately. "If you think too much, you'll get cold feet. Just talk." Her mother was wearing a ready-to-hear-the-worst expression. "No, not that," Nita said, feeling downright cross that her mother was still thinking along those idiotic lines. "But this is going to take a while." Nita swallowed hard. "You remember in the spring," she said, "that day Kit and I went into the city, and that night the sun went out?" Her parents stared at her, still angry, and now slightly perplexed, too. "We had something to do with that," Nita said. Truth Song. And Nita began to tell them. By the time she saw from their faces just how crazy the story must be sounding, it was already much too late for her to stop. She told them the story from the beginning, the day she had her hand snagged by an innocent-looking library book full of instructions for wizardry, to the end of her first great trial, and Kit's, that terrible night when the forces of darkness got loose in Manhattan, and would have turned first the city, and then the world, into a place bound in eternal night and cold, except for what she and Kit did. She told them about advisory and senior wizards, though she didn't mention Tom and Carl, about places past the world where there was nothing but night, and about the place past life where there was nothing but day. Not once did her parents say a word. Mostly Kit kept quiet, except when Nita's memory about something specific failed. Then he spoke up and filled in the gap, and she went on again.